Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Erica, and in today's video, I'm going to be ranking my Beauty Bay eyeshadow palettes, and I have 6 Beauty Bay eyeshadow palettes, which honestly really surprises me because I could go onto that website and purchase every single eyeshadow palette that Beauty Bay releases. I really do want to get the big blue and purple one and the really big green and brown one, I think, or is it mostly greens? Oh. And the cool thing about Beauty Bay is that they frequently have their palettes on sale, or they'll do like bundles on sale. And I just saw not very long ago, the green one and the blue one, the bigger palettes, well, and the smaller palettes too, were in bundles for really good prices. And I didn't get them, but I may have to do that at some point. Now, I do know that Beauty Bay palettes have been around for quite a while, and some of you might be thinking you're just now becoming a huge fan of Beauty Bay eyeshadow palettes, but you know, sometimes I'm a little slow to get into action here, a little slow on the uptake. So yeah, now I'm just finally falling super head over heels in love, gaga goo goo, over Beauty Bay eyeshadow palettes. So I did rank my 6 palettes. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't necessarily as difficult as some of my other ranking videos I've done, like my ColourPop ranking videos, because I have a ton of ColourPop palettes, my BH Cosmetics ranking video. Those were really tough. So let's start off with the palette that is in 6th place. I do have shades from this palette on my eyelids today, and that would be the Beauty Bay Dark Fantasy palette. And I just picked this up recently off the website, along with another palette that I'll show you here in a minute. This was on a really good sale. I think it was like, I don't know, $7, which I think that's pretty good. And I love this color story. I think it's gorgeous. That's what drew me in to begin with. But the reason why this is ranked in the 6th spot is that I don't know that I'm in love with the shimmer formula in this palette. I used this for the first time yesterday, and then I used it again today. So I've only used it twice. So I, of course, want to give it some more chances. But this shade right here called Machine, I used that yesterday, and it just kind of blew up on my lids throughout the day. By the time I got home from work, my look was a little janky, a little odd. It's kind of glittery. I mean, it's not, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, there's like glitter particles in it, I guess I would say, because it's not really glittery, but it's just kind of thick and kind of chunky and kind of flaky. And I think what I should have done is use some kind of glitter glue. I do have some NYX glitter glue that I think is just too old. Like, I think it was old when I got it. It just creases my shimmers like crazy. I tried it like putting the glitter glue down and letting it sit for a while and then putting the shimmer over the top of it, or just immediately putting the shimmer over the top of it once I get it on my eyelids, and it doesn't matter. Nothing really works. I just end up with these big thick lines of shimmer on my eyelids, and I just, I can't stand it. But I think if I got a new tube of NYX glitter glue and tried that out, we'll see. But I really should have used probably a different eyeshadow primer with my look yesterday. The mattes that I used were lovely. I used this one right here called Algorithm, this one right here called Dark Matter on my eyelids, and then I used this shade here called Spaced. Is that what that says? Yeah, Spaced, I think, and then Slime on my lower lash lines. Really liked that. Really liked the mattes a lot. And then today I use this shade right here called Virtual, this shade right here called Distortion, and this shade right here called Hack across my lids. And this is also in my inner corners. And I put these two on my lower lash lines. And, you know, I like how my look came together. I really do. But I'm a little interested and maybe a little bit concerned to see how this look's going to look at the end of my day today. Because I just really did not like how I looked when I got home from work yesterday. My husband was even like, wow, what'd you do at work today? Was it a rough day? And I'm like, no, I just didn't use the right eyeshadow primer, honey. So I don't dislike this palette. I love the mattes in here. I just am not super jazzed about the shimmers in here. But I'm going to keep trying the palette. We'll see. I want to try all the shades in here before I totally doom it to being something that I don't love in my collection. Number 5 is the Retro Love palette. And I just picked this up recently after my dear friend Andy Does Stuff, recommended that I pick this up. She and Ash, Makeup and Chaos, did a collab using this palette. And Andy reached out to me and said, I think you should get this. I think you're really going to like it. And so I did, and I do. I love it. Now, the reason why this is in the 5th spot is because I've only used it one time. But I really did like the shimmers, better than I like the shimmers in the Dark Fantasy palette. And the mattes in here are just stunning. Now, I've only used shades from these top 2 rows here. I haven't used any of these shades down here. And I'm really excited to try the shades down here too. And the thing that I love about this color story is that you've got the vibrancy and the really fun pops of color, but you also have some neutral options. And you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I love palettes like that. And so I really am excited to use the shades down here. I'm excited to use all the shades in here. But I just felt like I really couldn't rank this any higher because I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. And there are other palettes from Beauty Bay that I have in my collection where the color story just gets me a little bit more than this one does. The palette that's in the 4th spot is the Beauty Bay Utopia palette. And my dear friend Allie sent this to me, and I've used this a couple times on my channel and just love this palette. Now, at first, when we first saw this color story, I was like, I don't know, because these shades can intimidate me sometimes. And I was also kind of concerned that they wouldn't show up true to pan on my eyelids because I have this kind of murky golden undertone on my skin. And sometimes shades like this get like murkier looking or like dulled down or like maybe darker, I guess, than they look in the pan. And this palette does not do that on my eyelids. Yay! And I have used this a couple times on my channel. I use this in conjunction with the Gourmand Girls Ethereal palette because this is an all matte palette. The Ethereal is an all shimmer palette. Pulling them together was an absolute joy, so fun, just a pleasure. And this is a smaller palette, but it definitely packs a punch. And I think this would be great to travel with like in the spring or the summer. I think these are perfect tones for those times of year. Not that I necessarily base my looks on the seasons because I don't always do that. But if you are someone that likes to do that, highly recommend picking up this palette. And I'm pretty sure this is very affordable. The last time I saw this on the Beauty Bay website, I believe it was on sale for like, I don't know, $4 or $5. I mean, you just can't beat it. Palette number 3 is the Beauty Bay Age of Opulence palette. And Steph, not your basic Steph, my bestie, she sent this to me for Christmas, I think last year. And we did do a palette bingo collab using this palette. Love it. I love the shimmer formula in here, much better than I like the shimmer formula in the Dark Fantasy palette. This has that real thick, buttery, easy to apply formula and consistency. And it looks just as good when you get home from work as it does when you went to work, which that's a huge selling point for me, really. And the mattes in here are very pigmented and very blendable. I think this is such a beautiful, opulent color story, very decadent. I mean, all the richness you have in here. And I do know that sometimes people, or I've heard people say that they didn't really understand why there were neutral options in here. But I do like that because you can do a neutral base with a pop of color if that's what you want to do. And not everybody is all into a super colorful palette. So I think it's fun to have kind of options, both options, neutral and colorful, kind of mix and match. Or, you know, never use the neutral shades if you don't want to, but, you know, then you have a palette that you're not using shades in. And I know that makes me get a little nervous. And I'm like, oh, I need to use those shades. And okay, whoop, stop. But I really am excited to use this palette again. It's been a while since I've used it. I've used it, I think, 3 times now. And I just love it. I mean, God, look at how gorgeous. Like when you shift the palette around, I mean, it looks different, you know, the way the light's hitting it. I mean, just such a fun, interesting palette, beautiful color story, and thrilled that my Steffi sent this to me. Palette number 2 is the Beauty Bay Book of Magic palette. Oh, now this is a discontinued palette. And I was whining about not having this palette like a 2-year-old that had their toy taken away from them in a sandbox. And my dear friend Danielle that lives in the UK, she heard me whining and she sent this to me. I don't know where she found it, but she found it somehow and sent it to me. And it's just so gorgeous. I love the magic of this palette. I mean, it truly, to me, says magic. All the different tones in here, really fun combination of shades. I do feel like this color story is similar to the Age of Opulence palette. I do. But I do think that there's just, I don't know, more depth in here. There is a lot of depth in the other palette too. But I don't know, when I look at this palette, to me, I just see more depth. Again, we do have the neutral options, which I am fine with. I love that. And the shade that I love the most in this palette, the shimmer shade, is this one right here called Crystal. If you look at it, let me see. Can you see that? It shifts from like, I don't know, like a purple to like this color blue sort of, and then like a silver. I mean, it's just so awesome. And I do feel like Beauty Bay does a really good job of putting very special, very unique, very beautiful shades in their palettes. And I'm so glad that my dear friend got tired of listening to me whine about this palette and sent it to me. Danielle, I owe you big time, sister. Palette number 1, and this is the very first palette I ever tried from Beauty Bay, is the Beauty Bay Bright palette. And my dear sister friend Cheryl, she recommended that I pick this up. She has this palette and she said, if you're looking for a really awesome rainbow palette, this is hard to hold up. It's pretty heavy. But if you're looking for a really awesome rainbow palette, I highly recommend checking out the Beauty Bay Bright palette. And this is, like I said, the first time I'd ever tried this brand. And the very first time I used this palette, I almost slid off the chair and fell on the floor because I was so blown away by how amazing all the shadows I used perform. And this is a palette I could use pretty much daily and be perfectly happy with. I mean, really, if all of my other palettes grew legs and walked out of here, and this one was the only one that stuck around, I would be very happy. I would probably have to be hospitalized for a little while just to wrap my head around the fact that all of my palettes grew legs and walked out of the room. But I would be really happy that this one was still in my collection. Such beautiful rainbow tones in here. So many different things you can do with this palette. The shimmers and the mattes and the satins, everything works really well. I will say, however, that the satin shades or the shimmer shades in here are maybe softer in appearance than some of the other shimmers I've shown in the other palettes that I have from Beauty Bay, but equally as beautiful. And really, really fun to mix and match these shades. They're all very pigmented. They all blend out really well. They all work together really well. So yeah, I mean, I haven't done a lot of really maybe exciting or I don't know, different things with this palette yet. I mean, I've kind of stuck with more like monochromatic looks out of this palette, but this is definitely one that you could pull, you know, several different shades, several different tones together and just have a blast creating your look. So highly recommend, if you guys don't have this palette and you're looking for a really good quality rainbow palette, I mean, this is #1 in my ranking for a reason. I would go check this out. This is still available on the Beauty Bay website. And I think I mentioned earlier, right, that they do have a lot of sales, and this one is frequently on sale. So check that out. Now I will have a link to the Beauty Bay website in my description box. I really do recommend that if you guys haven't tried Beauty Bay yet, go give it a glance, go give it a peruse and see what you think of their palettes. And if anything speaks to you, I do recommend giving it a try. They're affordable and they work really well. I've been so impressed with the palettes I've gotten from Beauty Bay. Now, the shimmers in the dark fantasy, okay, they're not really my favorite. I do like how this look came together today, but I'm interested to see how my look is gonna look at the end of the day today. It may look like another hot mess when I get home today. Honey, get ready. Your wife might look a little woohoo when she gets home today. And if you guys have any of these palettes, let me know in the comment section what you think of them. If you have other Beauty Bay palettes I didn't show in today's video, let me know what you think of them, and we can have a nice grand chat about our love for Beauty Bay eyeshadow palettes. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your lives to sit down and watch this video. If you're new here and you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subscribing, smash that like button, and of course, comment in the comment section because I love to chat with you guys there. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. I cannot wait to see you guys again in my next video. But in the meantime, please take very good care of yourself. Be well, safe, happy, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Drop it.